What's up, guys? So for those of you who have been following me since 2018, the first year that I had this YouTube channel, you know that I had a theme in 2018 called Fuckboy of the Month. Every month I had a different fuckboy that I focused on for my life. 2019, I didn't have a specific theme every month, but I did do a lot of travel videos. So in a sense, that was kind of the theme. And then 2020, I haven't had any specific themes, but some of you recently have been saying like, how come you don't, start up a new theme? Those of you who've been digging up my old videos are like, you had themes, why aren't you doing this anymore? So I thought it might be a good time, even though we're like halfway through 2020. I thought it would be a good time to do like a quasi theme. So every month or every other month, I want to talk about a gay epiphany that I've had. And I was inspired by my one video from 2018 that was called My Epiphany. And I renamed it so that it'll kind of initiate this theme of my gay epiphanies. And that one was kind of like about abandonment issues and wanting to fill a void. This one will be the second. And I want this one to be about authenticity. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And it started with last fall when I went to Egypt. I had made a few videos about that for those of you who were subscribed back then. I met this boy in Egypt and he was, I think, 2 years younger than me. In my age group, but pretty sure he was 26 at the time and I was 28 at the time. And it's extremely rare that I'm attracted to a guy who's younger than me because I associate younger guys with immaturity and like boyishness, which is not really what I'm attracted to typically. But with him, I realized that I was attracted to his like sweetness and his kindness as like a young guy, as a young boy. And I was like, like that's not something that I'm usually attracted to. Not saying I'm not attracted to kindness, but like, I guess that sort of like gentleness in a boy is not something I typically lean towards, I guess, or that appeals to me specifically. And I thought, I guess in a sense my sexuality is like evolving, or my attraction to guys is evolving and shifting as I get older. And then I realized there was a few other guys in my age range who I've had a similar experience with in the past year where I was attracted to them in a way that I wasn't used to. And then I had this huge epiphany because I realized that those qualities I liked in them were qualities that I probably possess being in the same age range and having guys that I've had a connection with say those things about me. And it was this like epiphany that I realized those qualities made me attractive to other people, to other guys, even though I typically wasn't into those kinds of qualities, and therefore I never appreciated that about myself. And I then kind of unearthed this revelation that because I'm not typically attracted to my kind of person, my kind of guy, I didn't realize that those qualities could be attractive in another guy because I wasn't attracted to them. Does that make sense? So like subconsciously, I think maybe I've always felt like I had to like compensate because I wouldn't be attracted to myself otherwise. My personality is not necessarily what I seek out. And this goes back to, I guess, childhood. In my childhood, I didn't have any references for what it meant to be gay. I was just in my own mind, like, what do I think is attractive? Okay, that must be what everybody finds attractive. And that was a very narrow-minded point of view, but I'm talking about me at like, 10, 12, even, high school years. I didn't have any other reference point. And, then I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about during childhood, how many times I adapted who I really was for the sake of blending in more seamlessly. And I'll never forget in 7th grade, this is just one random example, but I always come back to this moment, that I started observing the differences between how boys would interact and how girls would interact. And I remember that in the hallways when I would see a friend, the guys were typically more subdued, more sort of monotone, and they'd be like, hey, how's it going? And then girls were typically more animated and more dynamic and like, hey. And this is so stupid, but I remember being, I guess, 11, 12, whatever the ages in 7th grade. And I was like, well, the boys aren't doing that, so I need to stop being as dynamic and like not waving to my friends, which sounds ridiculous, but I remember I had a friend who I guess I just nodded to, a female friend, and later on she was like, "Are you mad at me? Like you didn't wave at me like you usually do." And that moment in 7th grade made me realize like, oh, maybe it's not so great to try to blend in. Like I don't want to hurt people, I don't want to confuse people. And so it was like this inner dilemma of shifting my behavior to be like other boys, assimilating, but then also having this conflict of like, well, I don't want to confuse people and become somebody I'm not, to the point where then it throws friends that I have, that it throws them off. And I don't think this experience is unusual. I mean, I'm sure even subconsciously into adulthood, I'm sure there's times that I've maybe subconsciously adapted the way that I talk, the way that I move, the way that I act to not come off as gay. And this sort of revelation recently, this epiphany of being attracted to guys and their qualities that people have in the past associated with me, but that I didn't necessarily see as positive things, right? Because when you grow up getting your lack of masculinity pointed out, and then you get older and suddenly it's a positive thing and people say, oh, you're sweet, or you're cute, or whatever, even though they're complimentary, I guess I didn't always register it as that because I always associated those things with negative reactions from childhood. And so it's been this beautiful sort of evolution of now realizing, wait, those qualities are attractive because I'm now seeing them in other guys and finding them perfectly appealing and charming and alluring. And so I'm now having this like beautiful, I guess, transition, mental transition, realizing that me at my most authentic self is always going to be appealing to somebody, apparently. And that is such a beautiful realization because it's so different from my perception that I had growing up. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I hope it's making sense. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I found beauty in authenticity. And recently there's guys that I've encountered who were inauthentic, like the most common thing being lying about their age. And I was so turned off by that. And I'm realizing that it's not even about the age, it's the fact that they were insecure in their identity. And that then it made me feel like I couldn't trust them because they feel a need to cover up things about themselves. So then it's like, what if there's other parts of them that isn't really how they are presenting themselves? Another thing that kind of relates to this is, in my early 20s, I met these two guys separately, and I've actually made fuckboy videos about both of them separately, individually again. But both of them, I'll never forget the night that I met them. Both of them said to me, I really like your voice, your like speaking voice. There's something very authentic about it. And I never forgot that. And they were just being nice and not really overthinking it, but I will never forget what that meant to me. To have someone tell me that who I was authentically was really appealing to them. Like there's such a beautiful sort of, there's such a beauty in that, in somebody telling you that who you are, they're very attracted to you in your sort of honesty or transparency of who you are. And so I think I've been on this journey to get closer to who the real authentic me is. And it's great when it's welcomed and it's celebrated and it's invited. So I guess I encourage you guys to think about these things if you haven't already, and realize that you at your most authentic self is, not only does it make you feel better because you don't feel like you have to pretend and act to be a different way, so it just requires less energy, frankly, to be yourself, but I found that there's always somebody who's attracted to you for being that very way. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this was a long one, but I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you guys later.